Hello, everybody. Welcome to another DMV Comic Book Nerds podcast. I'm your host, Freddy, and today I'd like to welcome my friend Vinny to the podcast. Hey, Vinny, how's it going?
Welcome, welcome. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm ready to jump right into it.
Awesome. Yes, so glad you're here. Thanks for coming to the podcast. Today is Friday, April 19th. So we had about 2 days to like kind of sit with this show. Today we're discussing X-Men 97, season 1, episode 6, Life Death Part 2. So that's a mouthful, but before we start discussing the episode though, let's talk a little bit about ourselves. Let's tell the audience who we are. I'll
Awesome.
start real quick. I'm Freddie. I'm 35, from the DMV area, and I love the X-Men. Been loving X-Men ever since I was a kid. Um, yeah. What about you?
Vinny, 40 years old, from the DC area as well. I work in healthcare, so that's kind of a stressful environment. So X-Men 97 and really the whole Marvel catalog is like my sense of peace, from work. So love to come home and watch the shows.
Awesome. Um, I wanted to ask you, like, did you ever watch the old show when you were a kid?
Yeah, so I mean, this is pretty much nostalgia to actually be able to watch the continuum of what we both grew up on. It's kind of cool because when I first purchased the Disney app, one of the things that I watched was not only the old X-Men series but the Spider-Man series as well,
Hmm.
and this brought back so many memories. And so what I love about the X-Men 97 series is like it's a little bit more adult, kind of grown up. So it touches on the pieces that like you remember from when you were watching it as a kid, but now when you're an adult, you have a new appreciation for it. It's very hard to top the last episode, but episode before this, where Rogue
Hmm.
is holding Remy and says, I can't feel you anymore, something to that
Yeah.
extent. That's like crazy, like that's
Yeah.
that's something like it just touches on so many different things, and touch no pun intended, but like that's a powerful thing. And so when you're watching it as a kid and just Gambit not being able to touch Rogue, and then like now understanding the maturity of the relationship and love, that's a powerful scene, especially in comparison to her kind of choosing Magneto for other reasons, right? So
Hmm.
being able to really like in that scene express the true sentiment of love between Gambit and Rogue, I think that was pretty cool.
Agreed, 100%. And like you said so well, like that episode was such a huge impact, like emotionally, like plot wise, like it was crazy. Uh I kind of had a feeling going into this episode that would be a bit of a pause from, you know, that storyline. It looks like we'll get back to it next week, hopefully. But yeah, we took a little detour here to talk about Storm's storyline and also
Mm-hmm.
Professor X's storyline.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but even before we get into all that, you mentioned just how um how exciting it is to see a more mature take on the X-Men based off of like where it came from. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
wondering like so I know that you have a kid, so like is this
Mm-hmm.
show, in your opinion, uh mostly for people who grew up with it, or do you think it's like kid friendly, or is it like a little too mature for kids?
Um, that's it's kind of hard to tell. I think for someone that's watching X-Men for the first time, some of the innuendos and the development of how mature this story is will go over your head. So I don't really think that the age is more so the issue, but more so just knowing the original series and the original stories of what it has progressed to now. So I think if you watched the first series and then came into this one, no matter what age you are, you'll have an appreciation for it. As far as my daughter, she's turning 7 in two weeks. I think it's a little bit too mature for her, but I wouldn't be opposed to her watching it. I'd probably just have to explain a few things to her.
Hmm. I think that makes perfect sense. And like I wonder if kids these days are going to just jump into this series, or maybe older kids like or preteens and teenagers, or if they're going to go back and watch the old series. I know sometimes it seems like kids these days, quote unquote, don't want to watch like old shows, but I still think
You
there's a lot of
know,
value to them.
I think you're right. I think it'll be a combination of the both, right? So it just really depends upon the age demographic. So if you're a teenager, like I would say 13 and above, I think that they probably have watched both, especially with the success of the Marvel series. The non animation spinoffs, the movies, that so that there's always going to be an interest in following. And so it's just like kids that fall in love with like Steph Curry and LeBron. At some point, they'll go back and watch a Michael Jordan or Isaiah Thomas or Larry Bird video, right, just to see historically how things have progressed. For someone that's being exposed to comic books for the first time, so like if they're first time watching it at age 6, 7, or like 8, they may be the ones that may not go up back and watch it. So I just really think it's just what your entry point is into the comic book world.
Well said. Yeah, I agree. Like X-Men, excuse me. X-Men has such a rich history. Like the hope is that people, even if this is their first entry point, that they will go back and check it out and
Mhm.
also check out the movies and the comics and all that stuff. I do want to ask you real quick, if you have any favorite movies of the X-Men movies that have come out so far.
To be honest with you, they haven't been as good as the Avengers series, and I think it's all because of the studio ownership. I
Hmm.
will say though, the Wolverine 3 when he was in Tokyo,
Hmm.
that was awesome. And then I want to say the Logan
Hmm.
rated R movie. I love that.
Those were pretty good. Does that mean Logan, is he your favorite X-Men Wolverine?
Yes, and so one of the things that I actually like about the X-Men 97 is it's not really focused on Wolverine yet, but it's
Hmm.
been so good. So, I'm kind of optimistic to see how they tell his story and develop it, So right now he's kind of like a sub character, not the focal point, but it's still good. So
Yeah.
I just can't wait till they get to him.
No, I agree. Like I love Wolverine. I don't know if he's my favorite because I really love them all, but I do think that um, like you said, this show has done a pretty good job of like letting him step back a bit because he's
Mhm,
usually the star, like the
mhm,
movies and the cartoons. So it's like
mhm.
letting him step back a bit and let the other X-Men shine because there's so many great X-Men. I think that's what a lot of fans have been waiting for, to see more of Rogue and Gambit, to see more of
Mhm.
Storm, to see more of even Morph. Like Morph is not
Yeah.
a huge X-Men character, but like
Mhm,
he's kind of like getting a new life here. I gotta say they're kind of getting a new life here. And who else? Jubilee, she's growing up. She's
yeah.
18 now. She's
Mhm,
one of the more well, she's trying to get Sunspot to be,
mhm.
more confident in his powers. And yeah, like I just think that we've got a great cast here. I'm so excited with what they're doing. But let's talk a little bit about let's just dive right into the show, okay?
Sure.
Because a lot happened, and I'll give a quick summary. Okay, so at the beginning, we've got Professor X. We all knew he was coming back. Like, you knew he
Mhm.
was
Yeah,
coming back, right?
yeah, 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 yeah. It
Like,
was just more so how is he coming back, you
mhm.
know?
Yeah,
Mhm,
because for anyone who watched the last episode of the old series, we all knew Lilandra came from space and took him up there and was trying to heal him. So it was
mhm,
only a matter of time before we saw him again. But
mhm,
um, you know, it was weird how like they kind of talked around whether or not he was dead or whether or not
mhm,
he was still up there. Like I still don't understand entirely why he gave Magneto his inheritance, like his whole mansion and everything.
mhm.
But you know, especially if he's still alive, right?
But I also think like in a certain extent he kind of always know what Magneto needs, right? So I just think in the development of his character, while Magneto and Professor X they always have differences about human and mutant interaction. There's always a mutual, respect. And even if Charles comes back and takes over, I just think that that time being in the seat running an X-Men will definitely change, Magneto, maybe for the better, but something that it'll just resonate with them differently, I think.
Yeah, like I think I heard a rumor um that maybe there was a plan for Xavier to leave everything to Magneto so he would try to start the mutant nation of Genosha and all that.
Mhm.
Um I mean I guess there's still some more episodes to find out if there's more to it, but um anyway, we find Xavier in Shi'ar space, but first we see Deathbird. But even before that, I gotta backtrack because we gotta talk
Mhm.
about the opening credits. Like we can't skip over that because
Mhm.
every episode they're giving us new stuff.
Yeah.
Um, like this episode, they added a title for Nightcrawler based off of his
Uh-huh.
original 1985 comic book logo.
Mhm.
Um, what do you think about that? Like
I mean,
Nightcrawler.
like I just think the writers now, there it's just genius how every episode you're getting a breadcrumb a piece, and like just Nightcrawler when he was introducing, the crew to Genosha, in the previous episode, and just the confidence he has and how he's morphing and moving around. Very different from the recent iteration in the movie where Nightcrawler's kind of growing into his powers, right? So it's just
Hmm.
good to see him, in that different state. But the character development in this show, this version is just amazing. So it's just awesome to us see.
Agreed. Yeah, like the characters are growing and changing so much
Hmm.
every episode. Like
Hmm.
we don't know where it's going to end up this season, but we know we've had a lot of cast changeover.
Hmm.
I think first they added Magneto to the credits and got rid of Professor
Yeah.
X. Then they got rid of Storm. They got rid of Bishop.
Hmm.
And that's kind of hard to see. And then they got rid of Gambit, which was even more devastating based off of
Yeah.
last episode. So it's like it's kind of bittersweet to see Nightcrawler, but as a longtime X-Men fan, it's great to see Nightcrawler here. Um,
I also like the non Thanos Cable, so that was
oh
pretty
yeah,
cool. So
we got
it's
Cable.
yeah, it's just a whole lot of gems.
Yep, like fighting Apocalypse.
Hmm.
Do you think we'll see Apocalypse this season?
You know, I think the forecasting, um, has been spot on. So I'm assuming since they're doing that little tease, there will be that. I'm waiting for is it Nimrod, right? So the
Nimrod, yeah, he
yeah,
was in
yeah.
there this episode. Look
Yeah,
at that.
so it's kind of like what's really going on. So they just have like these subtle gems to get you ready.
Yeah, like so while we're on the topic of Nimrod, real quick, like I will be kind of shocked if we see Nimrod this season. I think it'd be pretty cool. People have spread rumors about maybe Bastion. Um, there was another tease in the opening credits of the scene from One Man's Worth right here, where the episode with Bishop and
Hmm.
Wolverine and
Hmm.
Storm.
Hmm. Hmm.
Like like you remember that episode?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
like that
So
was a good one. That's one of the standout ones of the old show, and like um yeah, it'd be interesting how much they're gonna bring back those characters. But I gotta say, I'll just say right off the top. Um, Never mind, I'll save this up for later. I'll come back to this. But yeah, so lots of cool stuff in the credits. Let's go ahead and talk about Professor X and Lilandra and Deathbird and the Shi'ar. All right, so I think this might be the first time we see Deathbird in the
sure.
X-Men show.
Hmm.
Like I don't really recall her in the old show, do you?
No, no, I don't.
But she was definitely a lot in the comics.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see her here. She's fighting the Kree. another alien race that we don't see a lot in um the old show. I think there was like a little cameo of like the Supreme Intelligence, but
Mm-hmm.
here we've got Ronan the Accuser. And to
Mm-hmm.
me, like this is very reminiscent of the Avengers Earth Mightiest Heroes show. Did you ever see that one?
No, so I didn't watch the Avengers cartoon. It's kind of funny. So my real first exposure to the Avengers was really the movies that have come out. So I was pretty much diehard X-Men and Spider Man, and never really watched the Avengers. So I'm just looking forward to seeing a crossover in the cinematic universe that Disney slash Marvel is bringing. But with that being said, I was excited to see that scene, because I'm like, the knowledge that I've gained in watching the Avengers movies, I knew who the Kree was. So it's just really cool. Like, so many different ways that now you can come into this. You can be connected to the comic books, no matter what your pathway is. It all brings you back to the common thing that you just appreciate what they're doing now.
Yeah. And like I'll show you this here. Like so like you said, you're familiar with the Kree from the Avengers movies, and also like
Mm-hmm.
Ronan was in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um I thought it was pretty cool because here's a picture of Ronan from Earth's Mightiest Heroes, and just like the
Yeah.
design. I mean, it's very classic from the comics,
Mm-hmm.
but it's just very similar to what they did here in X-Men. So I'm almost wondering if they're subtly hinting that these shows are connected. Um, I mean, there is a rumor that Captain America is coming soon. Like actually there was a teaser that Disney put out that we saw Captain America's shield. So it's
Sure.
definitely going to be some Avengers connections coming up soon.
Sure.
I don't
Sure.
know how many, but that's a pretty cool little tie-in. So they're fighting, and then they get an interruption. They have a message from Lilandra. Lilandra is announcing to the kingdom that she wants to marry Professor Charles Xavier, and that she wants him to be the emperor of the whole Shi'ar Empire. And he's got this crazy costume. Have you seen this before?
Yeah, I mean, so he came in just looking, badass, and
Yeah.
it's cool because the only other time I remember uh Professor X walking was when him and Magneto got caught in, I think, the other world, or whatever it was called, with the dinosaur. This
In
was in the
Savage
first.
Land?
That Savage Land, yeah, Savage Land. So that's the only other memory I have of Professor X walking. I really like this one, and it's cool. Um, Not trying to jump too far ahead, but I really like the way that they set up their love and what he was willing to sacrifice for it.
Hmm.
I think that he's been so selfless of himself that it's a chance for him to get a life, and he was willing to give it up, up into that vision. I don't know if you want to go that far ahead now, but I think they did a nice job setting it up, of the lengths that Lalandra and also him were willing to go through to be to a together.
No, yeah, I agree. Like we can definitely talk about that now if we like, because that kind of is the whole arc of this episode where, he and Alandra are trying to take their relationship to the next level. They want to get married. Um, but technically they are two different species. Like a human from Earth and she's a Shi'ar from space. So uh and for people who are not watching this on YouTube, we've got our backgrounds where I'm in the X-Men War Room and Vinny's in space. So this is perfect.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I did like to see more of the Shi'ar and Lilandra and everything. Like I know in the comic books, a lot of people are kind of tired of Professor X because every time you turn around, he's doing something like messed up, and his reputation has really gone down drain in the comic books,
Hmm.
but I do feel like the cartoon show always did try to show a more positive side of him,
Hmm.
and I think this episode did that as well. Like it shows some of what's cool about Professor X. Like uh, he does wear crazy costumes like Magneto or
Yeah.
sometimes, and he does and he is an educator. He's a teacher. Like I'm a teacher in my career, and like it was meaningful to hear him like talk about all that stuff, but we'll get there a little bit later.
Hmm.
Um, I did think it was funny how she announced him as his full name was Professor Charles Xavier. Like it's just funny to me because like you almost never see him teaching,
Yeah. Yeah.
but um technically I guess he in the comics he did teach at Columbia University for a while and was like doing some lectures and stuff. So I guess he's going to cling to that title of professor even in
Yeah.
space.
Yeah.
Uh
And it's just the respect that they have between each other, which
yeah.
I think that is a theme later, because the ultimatum that he's faced with. I
Yeah.
mean, that's just serious, and she recognizes how hard that is on him.
Hmm. And she was one of the few Shi'ar, or probably one of the only Shi'ar who respects him and understands where he's coming from.
Yeah, yeah, most definitely.
I gotta say, on that note, like it was really interesting how this episode pointed out that Lilandra also has psychic powers.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
I feel like maybe I knew that, but also I almost didn't know that because you never see her use her powers or like, you know, be mentioned as like on the same level as Xavier.
Hmm.
But when you think back to her first appearance, she did like send out some kind of mental bolt to like Charles Xavier, and that's why, um, like presumably she's had psychic powers this whole time. Who knows?
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, all right, so that was an interesting scene, and then we get another scene where they go to the garden, and you can see that there's a bunch of like horse-looking aliens doing a lot of the gardening. There's
Hmm.
several shots of that. Um, and before we saw like the horse aliens with like mining tools, like it's very much implied that this is like the worker class of the
Yeah,
Shi'ar Empire.
yeah.
And I think I might have seen these horse aliens before in like the Power Pack series. I remember
Hmm.
they get their powers from the horse alien or something.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
just another cool Marvel tie-in. Like there's layers to everything that's going on.
Most definitely.
We see these crazy looking space flowers and they're all opening up and while Lilandra and Charles are having their talk. Um Lilandra had an interesting line and they look up at a black hole in the sky and she said, you wish to return to your children, don't you? And he said, merely visit and see their faces. But she said, yet families often mimic black holes, visit and risk being stuck in its ever spiraling vacuum of dramas. Like, this is especially true with your students. Like, I mean, it is true. The X-Men have a lot of drama
Very,
and
very true.
very universal.
Well,
Um,
it the it's so ironic, because he could say the same thing about her sister and brother, but
absolutely, absolutely.
so I
So,
don't
like,
I don't know I don't know if she's like, talking about the X-Men, or speaking from experience, but no, I had the same, thought that was definitely a funny line.
and then he did go on to like mention Decan and the Mcron
Mhm.
crystal and all that,
Mhm.
and you know, I think it was great to see, what's been going on with this plot line because it's been what 20, 30 years.
Mhm.
Like
But
we've never
you
gotten the
know,
Shi'ar in the movies. We never got the
bro,
Shi'ar in any of the other shows. So like this is the only show that has really pulled the Shi'ar adaptation from the comics and they've done a pretty good job, I think.
hmm I think it's also another gem to show how they're equally yoked, and it just in their conversation, and it's kind of like what I took away from this episode really is just the choice that he has to make. And so, looking at this objectively, you could come to the conclusion that they're like the perfect couple,
Mhm.
and for some reason, he's faced with a challenge and kind of similar, indirectly to Magneto and Rogue, like going back to the previous episode,
Yeah.
their connectivity is there, but there's definitely a challenge that they had to face. So I don't even know. I mean, maybe could be reaching or could be intentional, but they like both, seems like Magneto and Charles are going to both deal with their respective broken hearts. And
hmm
if he does have to return back to Earth, I mean, there could be another parallel or similarity between them both of them.
That's a great parallel. Like you said, like Magneto was asking Rogue to be his queen, and you
hmm
got Lilandra asking Charles to be her king, essentially.
hmm
And
hmm
it is kind of wild because they really do get into the politics of it and how, he's from Earth and you want him to be the emperor, not just like some
hmm
kind of consort or like some guy on
Yeah.
the side, like
hmm
like you want him to have power here. And like
hmm
Deathbird is not about
Yeah.
that. Like she
No,
gets
not
mad
at all. Not at all.
right from the start. But
Not at all.
I do want to pause on this for a minute, and because the scene does switch to Storm and Forge. And like this is about 8 minutes into the episode, and the episode is
Yeah.
titled Life Death Part 2. So I gotta say,
hmm
I was expecting the whole episode to be about Storm and
hmm
Forge based off of the comics. Um, because the first part was, with the Jubilee episode, and they both had their own title and it was more spread out. So it's like then they revealed the day before with like a trailer that Professor X was going to be in this episode. So, um, you know, it was a subplot. I don't know. Like honestly, I feel like the Professor X part was the A plot and the Storm plot was the B plot, and I'm sad to say that because the Storm part was amazing. Like we're gonna talk
Yeah.
about it. Like
No, most definitely. But I kind of think like they're really good. The cartoons are always good at getting a lot within 30 minutes, right? And I
yeah,
just think like they just felt like, well, we can't do it to the people. We can't like have Gambit go through what he went through, and then like at least not give them Storm back. That's just a bit much on our heart. So that's kind of the way that I take it. Also, and I guess this is where I want question where I wanted to ask you: are we to assume that these are parallel processes, like they're both happening at the same time? Because that was something that I can't really figure out what the timeline of the storm story and how that correlates to what Professor X is going through.
that's an interesting question. Like when I was watching it, I did notice that um the the shifts, the transitions between settings happened when time was passing, when they like for instance when Storm and Forge decided to get on the horse and go to the
hmm
fort, like
hmm
um instead of just having them go straight to that scene, then we cut to like Charles and Lilandra in space. So
hmm
I don't think they ever said if it took place at the same time or if this is just everything that's happened since. But
hmm
actually, it does kind of like dovetail into the moment at the end. Like it does seem very present because Charles gets his vision of what happened in Genosha. Storm ends up seeing on the news what happened in Genosha. So we're
Got
very
it.
pretty
Yeah, you're
much,
right. You're right. So that is tying everything together. Yeah,
yeah,
that
so we're
that
pretty
makes
much catching up with both of
yeah.
them.
Got it. As I completely forgot about that part.
All good. So we see we pick up right with Storm and the adversary.
hmm
And um she's it's crazy. Like the adversary is literally a demon just
hmm
trying to like torture Storm and Forge. Um the demon has bitten Forge in the last episode, so he's looks like he's dying. Um, yeah, it's crazy. It was very much like a horror movie, I think, for for Storm to just be haunted by a demon in like a cabin, you know?
Hmm.
Um, there was some and the demon said some real stuff to Forge, like
Yeah.
just about like tormenting her about the fact that she left the X-Men.
Hmm.
Um, she said, "You're not an X-Men anymore. You're kissing the hand that beats you." Like,
Hmm.
like they went all in with this.
Yeah. You know, one thing that was kind of like a curiosity is I don't know exactly where they are in the world, but I remember the original X-Men series where Storm, with her son, they were, I think they were in Africa near Mount Kilimanjaro to be exact, and the drawings kind of look the same. So I don't know where Storm and Forge are. I don't know too much about the backstory, but I was curious. Like, is Forge like the father? Like these are just thoughts that I'm thinking, but I don't know the backstory.
So, right now we know in episode two, Storm went to Texas. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not sure if they're in Arizona now, but they're definitely
Mm-hmm.
like in the Southwest somewhere.
Got it.
Uh,
Okay.
and then in that episode you mentioned where they're at Mount Kilimanjaro, that was in Africa, and that's actually part of the life death story in the comics. Like they kind of
Mm-hmm.
already told a part of that story
Mm-hmm.
when Storm was like bringing the baby back to life and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so, it is interesting to see this side of the story, everything to do with Forge.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and in this scene, like Forge comes in basically looking like Doctor Strange in jean
Yeah.
shorts. Like and he's got his magic book and he said,
Uh-huh.
uh I got my mom practiced desert magic, so I'm able to
Mhm.
banish demons. So
Uh-huh.
that was pretty crazy. What do you think of that?
No, I mean, I think that that's classic Forge, and while he's trying to, I guess, be a better human being around Storm, and the demon try to call him out on it, but I just think that that's definitely funny.
Yeah, like that was pretty cool. Like I kind of wish that the depiction of his magic looked a little bit more indigenous and less like Doctor Strange,
Sure.
but it does tie it into the MCU kind of with just the visual of it.
Sure. Sure. No. So what did you think about the claustrophobic scene? Uh
Okay.
yeah, yeah, like that was pretty awesome also.
Yeah, like I thought it was really well done. I mean, yeah, this show, like I said, they went there, like just really taking Storm to her lowest point, like where she's like most afraid. Like I thought that was really well done. I mean, I will say I am kind of tired of seeing Storm always getting like uh
Yeah, I feel
rocks
you.
thrown on her. And like if you go back to
Yeah,
the old series, like they knew her weakness was claustrophobia and they were always like covering her in rocks. And I'm like, anyone would be scared of being covered in rocks. Like
that's
you
true.
could be
Very
crushed to
true.
death. Like that's not
Very
just
true.
like her weakness.
Very true. Very true.
But but
Yeah, they need to put some respect on Storm's name.
yeah. But they did do that in the end. So
Yeah.
like we'll get there in a bit, but yeah, man. Like Storm is always dealing facing her fears basically. I
Mhm.
it also I gotta say it reminded me of a storyline that just came out in the comic books. There's a title called Resurrection of Magneto,
Mhm.
and Storm also basically goes to the afterlife, and she has a moment where she has to face, the darkness,
Mhm.
um, and the Shadow King and all that. So um, it makes you wonder. I guess this show probably happened first because it takes so long to produce. It was probably years in production before the comic, but I wonder if the comic writers had any input to what the show was doing, or if they were just coming up with that on their own as a coincidence. But like, there's lots of parallels there.
Sure, sure.
But yeah, did you have any thoughts on the claustrophobic scenes that you want to share?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it was like Storm's going through it. She's lost her powers. Now she knows she's crawling through this tunnel of darkness. But I just did like the fact that that was the impetus for her to get her powers back, and she's always like a very powerful speaker. So just the way she expressed that moment, and like I'm Storm, and I don't remember exactly what she said, but I felt that like empowering sense of pride and elegance that she always has, and really embracing like she's not just a mutant, but she's like mother nature, and so
Yeah,
that kind of celestial like deity feel that's always been around her character. I think this series really brings it out, and you just look at her as more so of a queen and not just a mutant.
absolutely. Like let's just dive into it and talk about everything that happened with Storm this episode because it was amazing. So right at the beginning, she was telling the demon, basically like Beyonce, she said, "You won't break my soul."
Yeah.
And then, um, then the demon's coming after her and making her think, maybe I'm better off this way. Like she
Yeah.
expresses that to
Yeah.
Forge, and he tells her something really interesting. He says that growing up, everyone used to say that the worst weapon that the white men brought was not bullets or blankets, but the white lie.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And Storm later on realizes like she believed the lie that,
Yeah.
that she would be better off as
Mm-hmm.
a human without her powers. So when she finally rejects that lie, that's when she overcomes the adversary
Mm-hmm.
and transforms with this
Mm-hmm.
magical girl transformation. Like
Yeah.
her costume changes, and like a lot like in the first episode of the old series, like she can just
Mm-hmm.
do that like in an
Yeah.
instant.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, with the lightning, like her hair grew back. Like every like
Mm-hmm.
this was
Mm-hmm.
crazy because all the discourse online, so many people hated the Mohawk, but you
Mm-hmm.
know, if you're familiar with this storyline, you kind of get it. But um, to see her transform not only to having the classic long hair, but to have the classic costume, Dave
Sure.
Cockrum, like the original costume Storm
Yeah.
appeared in 1975.
Yeah.
It was glorious. It was beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, they were, I think, how progressive Marvel and Disney has been. I mean, she definitely had her black girl magic moment.
Yes,
That's the way that I see it, and it's always positive to have those affirmations on TV. So I'm super impressed by it.
absolutely. Like for too long, they were not putting respect on Storm's name. Like they were
Yeah,
having her make ice cubes for Cyclops in the
yeah,
movies, and um, or like they were not just doing justice to her character. So like to see her finally, uh, you get to embrace the fullness of who she is. Like that was amazing.
hmm,
They even put the crown on her, just like
yep,
the one that she had from the comics. And I will say like once I step back and look at it, I'm like, I thought that like they had teased that we were going to see this costume, and I
uh-huh,
thought it was going to be in a flashback, but
yeah,
now they're pretty much telling us this is going to be her new look for the rest of the
yeah,
season, probably. So like,
yeah.
it's very interesting to me that in this show she's going from her '90s look to the '70s look. It's kind of almost like a step back, but not like in a bad way, like more like in just a reverent way, like it's really
Nah, I
homaging.
see it. I think it's like a rebirth, or getting back to the basics, getting back to who her core character was, and that's why I like it. It's not the Storm that was like trying to assimilate in the X-Men, or be like a good key contributor, but not the leader. I see this Storm is breaking out. This Storm
Yeah,
is really embracing herself, choosing to be the queen, choosing to be Mother Nature, choosing that strength, the power, overcoming her fears, standing up to the demon, kind of forgiving Forge, and re-understanding her purpose. So I think it's that's one thing I like about the X-Men 97 is really getting deep into the character growth and the complexity that each character brings. And I think that's why people really appreciate it from our age group, because we see that growth in ourselves, not individualized, right? So it allows you to connect to the cartoon in this version just in a different way, and I think that's the coolest thing about it.
absolutely. Like some people were kind of comparing that scene to how Stella got her groove back. They were like, how this is how Storm got her groove back.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, especially since
Hilarious,
we all
but
know Angela Bassett would have been an amazing Storm had that
yes.
happened back in the day. Um, what else? Yeah, like it was just so great to see um, you know, Storm coming into her power again. Like she was able to get the cactus to heal Forge,
Hmm.
and yeah, like now she has to unfortunately go deal with the fact that a whole bunch of mutants have been murdered.
Yeah.
Because she sees that on the news. Um, this happens to Storm a lot, like in the comics. Like she's always not there when stuff goes down, so it's like she then feels bad about it, and then
Yeah.
she's called to an act of heroism to help the people, recover from what happened. Like it happened in the comics with the Hellfire Gala. It happened um, with the Mutant Massacre in the Morlock
True.
tunnels.
Warlock. Yep. Yep.
Mhm. So um, I'm glad Storm wasn't at Genosha, but yeah, I'm interested to see how this will bring her back to the team.
Sure.
Um, I do want to shout out that there have been a lot of videos online. People have been putting like Beyonce songs over Storm's transformation scene. I've seen Alien Superstar, I've seen American Requiem, I've seen Sweet Honey Bucking, like look at that horse, look at that
Yeah.
horse, look at that horse. Like
That's
it's I love all that like the internet, like Black Twitter, we have been going crazy with this episode because it's just been like it, there've been a lot of moments that speak to us because a lot of the show was written by a black man, a black queer man, like
mhm.
Bo DeMeo. Uh, he's been very vocal online about the different influences he had, and I did find it interesting because when I looked at uh, the credits for this episode, the writer for this episode was Charlie Feldman,
Mhm.
and it was interesting because online, Bodemeo did kind of take credit for certain lines like Milky Way Ghetto
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and and the speech that Charles gives later on. So, but I mean, I'm sure it is like a whole writer's room where they're all,
Mhm.
adding different things to it.
Well, you
Uh
know what? In the speech, I'm glad you dropped that gem, because that was actually my favorite part of the episode, was when he brought them all into the classroom.
yeah.
That was really cool, especially because in that moment he's like, "Wait a minute, I'm Professor X. I got this power. Let me learn you guys something." And then he takes them to the classroom. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, he said class is in session.
Yeah.
Like it was cool. Like I will say that a lot of this is a direct reference to like the comics with Grant Morrison,
Hmm.
where sometimes they would go to the astral plane and have a little classroom discussion, and then also specifically the scene when he finds out about Genosha, like the lines are straight out of the comic book where he was like oh my God, like this is like they were having a party, like they were in the middle of making love, like they were literally
Hmm.
just trying to live their own lives, and then all of a sudden, like that's when he falls out at the end because he like the shock of what he just saw. Like he saw like he was seeing skeletons and like giant skeleton Gambit and
Yeah,
all that.
yeah,
Like that
yeah.
was a shock for sure. Man, like that's what changed his whole decision because like up prior to that he was ready to give it all up for Lilandra. I mean, he
Hmm.
had some doubts about it. Um, let's backtrack to the scene where he's talking to Gladiator. It's interesting to see a little bit more of Gladiator.
Yeah,
He never got a lot to do in the old show, but he had some cool moments, like punching
yeah,
out the Juggernaut.
yeah, yeah.
Um, but in this scene, he's talking to Gladiator, and he mentions Rudyard Kipling, and
Hmm.
I thought I knew who Rudyard Kipling was, but I had to look it up and just find out exactly what they were referencing here. Um, so Kipling is famous for writing the Jungle Book series,
Hmm.
but he also wrote a poem called "The White Man's Burden,"
Hmm.
and this is something that Xavier even references. He said Rudyard Kipling was a man possessed of his own burdens, and like at first I had to think about what he was referring to, but like this episode very strongly talks about colonialism and even imperialism with the whole Shi'ar Empire.
Hmm.
And so like according to Rudyard Kipling, his poem has been interpreted in different ways, but it's like um some people say he was saying how it's the white man's burden to civilize people of color.
Hmm.
Um, but he also points out some of the problems of it that so is are white people even helping people of color? Are they actually, hurting them? Which we know from history, there's unfathomable harm that was caused. So
Hmm.
um, it's just wild to hear this show kind of, dig deep into these topics.
No, I mean they're definitely gems, you know. So I'm an alpha, and so one of the poems that we all learn is "If" by Rudyard Kipling also, and so it's like he's a very thought provoking artist, and to drop those gems in there, and to for Professor X to show the hypocrisy that the Shiite have. I just think it's cool, but it's also like as adults we appreciate that, right?
mhm.
And so we appreciate the knowledge that's infused in the comic. So again, it's
Like in
like
that moment, I was like, Professor X is teaching me something because I
yeah,
didn't know
yeah,
all
yeah,
this.
yeah, yeah. It's just really cool that we're older and it's appealing to us, right?
Hmm.
It's no longer like I don't to your point, and I still thinking about your question earlier in the show, whether younger kids will gravitate toward this. I still don't think it's 100% an adult show, but I love the maturity with it, right?
Yeah.
So I just think all these things are just more reasons to keep watching in my opinion.
Yeah, like I think teens who watch it, like stuff might go over their heads, but like there will be a lot there for them to chew on in years to come. Like
Yeah,
and they'll be able to do what we're doing now in the future, look back on the show and be like, "Whoa,
yeah,
I didn't
yeah,
get that as a kid, but
yeah,
I get it now as an adult."
yeah. Most definitely agree with you.
So, um, let's see. So it's just interesting because like Gladiator explains how the Shi'ar really don't have any respect for art. Um, he says that it's a sign of insanity and deviance, which we see all the time in history. Like one sign of fascism is just people trying to like control art and destroy art, and and we even see attacks on X-Men 97, like people saying it's
Hmm.
woke trash and all that. Like,
Hmm.
um, so it's just interesting to hear the show call that out, and And but then Gladiator does have an exception for that because they have the central myth of Shara and Kithri, where like their love inspired them to, bring nations together for the glory of the Shi'ar Empire. And like I said, Xavier is pointing out the hypocrisy of that
Yeah.
because what they're doing is they are basically crippling other people, like and whole planets and governments for them to be more powerful. Like Xavier said,
Mhm.
they were cutting them off at the knees. They wanted Xavier to get rid of all of his memories. Like
Mhm.
that was what Deathbird comes around and says, like, I
Mhm.
challenge you to cleanse all your memories of Earth if you want to be the emperor
Mhm.
of the Shi'ar. Um, and so Xavier, you know, he doesn't want to do it, but he does love Lilandra and wants to, pursue this life with her. Um, yeah, I don't know. What would you do?
I mean, I think he gave it the honest try. I would
Hmm.
have given it the honest try, but
Hmm.
I just don't think with that vision, like I was always curious what actually sparked it, right? So
Hmm.
is it just the connection to the X-Men, or is there another, psychic force or connection? Or, I was curious if it was Jane or whatever, like I just don't know how that image, struck him at that point, because he had no conscious of it. It wasn't like he was searching or trying to connect with the X-Men. So maybe it's a connection that can never be severed. Maybe a defense mechanism. It was just interesting. I'm actually going to go back and watch that scene to see if there's something that I missed, because I mean, last thing I remember, he's giving the lecture and then he's just struck by this, overwhelming image, and he's like, nah, I can't do of this. So, but I just think, I mean, he tried, but just wasn't going to happen.
Yeah, like it was interesting how like he's been in space for a year. He's in love with Lilandra. She's trying to tell him it's okay to move on. Like the goal of teaching is to eventually have your students grow and be able to have finished learning the lessons, like to graduate in a sense. Um so then he's really trying to figure out, but can I still visit the X-Men? Can I still see what's going on? And all this time the Lander's assuring him, like, it's fine, like they'll be fine without you. But we know it's not fine. And I mean, there is the question, even if Professor X was there, would he have done anything about it? Like, would it have made a difference? Um,
No, I mean,
I
you're
don't
right,
know.
because I don't think so, because I mean, it wasn't like they had an enemy where he can manipulate the mind. I mean,
Hmm.
that was just, I don't know what that thing was, but
Hmm.
it just came and wreaked havoc.
Like,
I don't remember ever seeing a spider sentinel, of that magnitude in any other previous comic books or shows. So that was just a serious opponent for them to have.
yeah, this giant Tri-Sentinel, this is from the 2000s era comics with Grant
Got
Morrison, and this
got it.
is like, so they definitely are pulling from the storyline where, this giant crazy, they call it like, Gambit called a Godzilla Sentinel in the
Mhm.
episode. That was the one that destroyed Genosha. And in the comic books, this is because of Cassandra Nova and Larry Trask, who's like a son of Bolivar Trask, I believe. So it's like I was wondering if they were going to go that direction. But we see in this episode at the very end that for some reason Bolivar Trask has escaped the custody of the UN. He's like
Mhm.
in some kind of suburb. He's like near a diner. He's outside of a diner. And Mr. Sinister is coming for him. Like he's zapping him
Mhm.
with stuff and
Mhm. Mhm.
and he's just being his evil self. And I guess the implication is that Mr. Sinister is kind of behind this. Like he's kind of basically telling Bolivar Trask to join him in being evil, and he'll be all right. But I
Hmm.
don't know if that's true. But who knows what's going on? Like, do you think Mr. Sinister is the big bad of the season, or do you think there's more to it?
No, I think he's manipulating the different things. So I think that he is. I think that this season is really focused on him as being the main protagonist. You know, but in true to Marvel fashion, there's always gems. So, and as a matter of fact, maybe the image that I'm questioning how that was projected to Charles, it could have been Sinister. I don't put it past him. I mean, he does have that ability. So, but I just, I'm just optimistic and curious, just to see. I don't want to guess about what's coming. I just want to enjoy it as is, because I mean I just think that this is an awesome series.
All right. Well, I hope you don't mind if I just kind of like speculate a little bit,
Sure,
because I
sure,
just want
by
to
all means.
say, in regards to Sinister, like my first impression at the end of this episode, I was really kind of annoyed. I'm like we said on the last podcast that we didn't really want to see a cartoony explanation about who was behind this. And Sinister is
Sure,
like one of the most cartoonishly evil villains on the show.
sure, sure, sure.
Um, like he's just so over the top with it. But at the same time, I wonder if they're going to dig into the fact that, he is actually pretty scary. Like he's 18th is it 18th or 19th century British doctor who's doing evil mad science like
Yeah.
on mutants and people um and like he's got this ghostly pale white look. Like,
Hmm.
is Mr. Sinister supposed to be the face for like white supremacy and the evil that it is capable of, like, eugenics and all this? Or is it just or is he just going to be one of the villains? I do think they've been teasing like Bastion. There was a rumor. I gotta shout out the Nando cut. Like if anyone goes on YouTube and looks up the Nando cut, he had some speculation about uh who could be behind this. And I have to say it, like he said maybe Roberto's father, um, what's his name? Whoever Roberto da Costa's father is, he was in the comics, he was in the Hellfire Club, he was a
Hmm.
rich guy, he was very
Hmm.
powerful, uh sometimes kind of villainous. So it would be interesting if they make that one of the reasons why Roberto has been so scared to embrace his mutantity or whatever you want to call it.
Sure,
But
sure.
but we'll see. Like that would be a ways off if they want to reveal that because we haven't seen a lot of Roberto over these past two episodes.
Got it. No, I think that's an interesting, theory. Going back to the face of supremacy. I think there is a parallel there, especially when you think about what you just stated about the um, the burden that the Rudyard Kipling reference, and then also too, looking at cloning and trying to have the best child, or have the child with the DNA of Jean Grey and Cyclops, very reminiscent of the Hitler, so,
Hmm.
and trying to have the pure race. And then also, and directly, I think that there have been some references to the origin of Magneto as well, in some of the other earlier episodes, and the torture of his family. So
Hmm.
I think that there's always hidden gems within the Marvel universe about the ugly side of mankind, and our total history.
Let me ask you a question though. If a character like Mr. Sinister or the Red Skull can represent like these heinous, horrible things, um, like how how's that how do we allow space for like people to like be fans of these characters? You know, like is that to what level can we say, oh, I like Mr. Sinister as a villain, or I like, like even with
Well,
Deathbird, like
I
in this
mean,
episode,
it's
she's also the face of imperialism and like murder and like all these things that she's space racism. Like she's the biggest space racist out
true. But
there.
I mean, so stepping back, right? If you take, I think it's a commonality to where this evil that we generally identify with manifests itself in different ways, right? But also
Mhm,
it's a part of human nature. So even with villains, there are some things that draw us to it. Like stepping out of this the Marvel universe for a second, one of the greatest performances of all time, in my opinion, is Heath Ledger's Joker, right?
mhm.
In the dark Knight, to the point where it's like Batman's irrelevant. Like I want, Heath in this movie killed it. And, and I think it's some of those parallels and the characters, even in the Black Panther with Killmonger. In that movie, he was the protagonist, but he was still dropping some gems, So it's just like I think that all these characters just have complex components of it, and we're driven to particular parts.
It's interesting because like not that long ago there was some discourse on the internet. There was a panel of the Jokers saying, I may be a homicidal murderer, but I'm not a racist. Like I'm not a
Yeah.
white supremacist. Like and so it's like interesting when you look at all the major villains and which ones, are redeemable or which ones are, you know, on a different scale than other ones. Like Magneto, he's a great villain, but he's kind of come around. Like in this whole show, he's trying to be more of a
Yeah,
hero. He's more of
yeah,
an anti-hero.
yeah.
Um, but
Where
like
Sinister is just pure evil.
pure unrepentant
Uh,
evil.
yeah, even Apocalypse. I don't know where you put Apocalypse on the scale. I mean, he's evil, but I kind of understand that he just wants mutants to pre- prevail.
Yeah.
So but
Like he's
yes,
got some nuance to him as well,
yeah,
especially in the
yeah,
comics recently. Like they've
yeah,
added a lot of nuance to his character,
yeah,
and more so than the show. Because like the old '92 show, he was just kind of like
uh,
a madman, like
yeah,
with all the
yeah, yeah.
power, and he would just
Hmm,
pop up and
hmm,
spout
hmm,
nonsense. But it
hmm.
was cool to watch. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so I mean, I like him as a villain. But yeah, it is an interesting conversation, I think, to see, to what degree can we cartoonify these
Hmm.
evils? Because like I just think back to there was this episode in season 5 of X-Men, and it was like they were fighting the Phalanx, and then at the very end of it, Mr. Sinister, like they finally beat the aliens, and they're all trying to like uh go home or whatever. Mr. Sinister, he literally runs away like in the back of the picture while nobody's looking. You can kind of see him. It's
Yeah,
really like goofy.
With the fate of the planet hanging in the balance, many acted to save their own skin.
Including Sinister. Where is he?
Slunk back into the shadows where he belongs.
yeah,
Uh like he was always doing goofy stuff in the old show, like when he had his nasty boys,
yeah, yeah,
like they
yeah,
just seemed like they were just a stupid rock band or something. I don't know,
yeah.
like they were in the Savage Land just causing mess. But
Which is, the name is just appropriate. Sinister.
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
he's so obvious and on the nose that
Mhm,
uh it's both hilarious but also horrifying.
mhm, mhm. Nah,
So it's kind of
definitely
interesting.
agree.
So like I won't be
Yeah,
mad if he's the only villain, but I do feel like there's more that they could do in these last couple episodes. So we'll
sure,
see.
sure.
All right, well, I guess we've talked about most of this episode so far. I I might want to hit a few more lines or things. Like I thought it was really interesting at the end when Professor X said, "It's time I return to my X-Men." because again, we're having a variation of that original line from X-Men #1.
Yeah.
Return to me, my X-Men. Like they
Yeah.
keep
Yeah.
recalling that line.
Yeah.
And what do you think of the voice actor for Professor X? Like he's a new guy, but I think he's doing a pretty good impression of the former actor.
Yeah, but also too, doesn't seem as strong and much of a leader, but could be like I sense some apprehension in the voice, but that just could be how great of a voiceover actor he is. Like we're seeing a different Professor X who has kind of internal struggle of whether he should choose his own personal happiness versus his obligation. And there's like some optimism and curiosity if he should, like, spend his life with Shi'ar, emperor. So I think, like, I just get a different feel of him as the voiceover versus the original series, but I think we have a different Professor X. I can't wait to listen to his temperament when he's back with the X-Men.
Yeah, like I do think it was important to finally hear Professor X giving long speeches and
Sure,
having real dialogue and showing real
sure,
emotion, because so
sure.
far we've just seen cameos where like Morph was pretending to be Professor X and it was
Yeah,
like
yeah,
very over the top, and then we had the demon version of Professor
yeah,
X,
yeah.
and that was like very crazy. So but he's always giving people demerits. He tried to
Hmm.
give Deathbird some demerits because she was always popping off, like
Hmm.
talking about the Milky Way ghetto. Like
Uh-huh.
she reminded me of Nene Leakes in that moment. She's like, "Ooh, child, the
Yeah.
ghetto."
Ooh, the ghetto. The ghetto. The ghetto.
And then, um, what else happened? She was like she was really high key mad about Xavier being with Lilandra.
Oh
She
yeah.
was talking about his inferior freak fluids, and like the fact that he's a sapien, like descended from sapiens and all this. Like, so it's just crazy to me, like how the Shi'ar, like Xavier has left Earth only to encounter more racism, like than he
Yeah.
had on Earth, because
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
entire empire is against him.
Yeah.
And he's got to try and convince them that that at the end of the day, we're more similar than we are different. Um, and I mean, I think he did get straight to the point about, like, he almost convinced them.
Oh
It
yeah.
seemed like.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what stood out so much to me in the episode, is that he's really going through this internal struggle. Like, am I about to do this? And he's like, nah, I gotta talk to them. We gotta talk about this. And he's thinking about, peace, and how, when I mean peace, how there can be a balance between his world, what he doesn't want to give up, and still being able to fulfill his duty to Lalandra, and then just like overcome with, anguish and angst from seeing, knowing that Gambit has died, and what happened at Genosha. And it's just like, that was just such a surreal moment for him, you know um and just really, like, I can't wait till the next episode, because he's going to come back and have to deal with that, and there could be a response to the from the Shi'ar Empire as well, so we have to think about, what Lalandra's sister's ultimate goal is, by facing him with that challenge, one that she knew that he couldn't, well, she thought that he wouldn't be able to bear. We don't know what her gender is, so it's just a whole lot that can come from this.
Yeah, like Deathbird essentially stages a coup here in
Yep.
like when Xavier hesitates about giving up his memories of the
Hmm.
X-Men. Um, she barges in with her troops and they're like, "You know what? We don't like how y'all are doing things." And then Lilandra fights back. She has Gladiator on her side. He's
Hmm.
basically acting like Superman, blowing these
Yep.
fools
Yep.
down.
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
and then So that becomes a big fight, and then Xavier finally uses his powers. He's like, you know what? That's when he said class is in session,
Mention,
which is
yeah.
interesting because like I always gotta say, unfortunately, with the storytelling of the X-Men, it's like the tragedy of it from day one is that Xavier has the power to control people's minds, yet he can't use it to stop people from being prejudiced against mutants.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
like, it always makes you wonder, like, what if he could use it? Like, did you see the Eternals movie?
I did, but I don't remember it.
Like, there was one scene where one of the Eternals, his name was Druig, he actually did have mind control powers, and he used them to like control some his own community of human people, and they were
Mhm.
peaceful. And then when the Eternals came for him, they were trying to criticize what he was doing, but he was like, "But it worked though. Like,
Mhm.
we don't have any violence and problems over here." And like this is he only did that out of response of seeing like uh eons of humans being crazy and violent. So
Yeah,
it
yeah.
almost makes you wonder, you know, is that the only solution? Hopefully it's not, because that robs people of freedom, free
Mhm.
will, free choice. So
Mhm.
it's like I guess that's the old question, like liberty versus uh what respect, like civil
Mhm.
civil
Mhm.
rights. Like
Mhm.
it shouldn't be a question, but unfortunately we've always had to fight for, you know, equality, for to be seen uh on the same level.
Mhm.
Um but
Well,
yeah.
I think that that speaks to the nobility of Professor X's character too, though, because I think it's not about him not having the power to, it's him more so not choosing to.
Hmm.
Because in a sense, if he forces thoughts into the minds of men, then he then becomes what he's against, you know.
Hmm.
So I think it was more so having people naturally choose, the equality and peace. So
No,
that's
I
just.
agree. Yeah, like I said, this version of Professor X does feel more noble, but I
Mhm.
just think about so many comics I've read over the years where he has violated, like he claims he doesn't, you know, use his mind powers on people against their will, but he does all the time.
Yeah, yeah.
And but even then it doesn't work out. But I just think, you know, it's just kind of a weird position to be in because at the very least, you would want him to use his powers against the villains, like the people who are scheming up genocide, like the people who are
Sure,
creating these sentinels.
sure,
Is it okay to use your powers against them,
sure.
and prevent all these deaths? But if he did that, then there wouldn't be a show and movies and
True.
cartoons and
Very
comics.
true. Very true.
So it's
Very
it's kind of a frustrating back and forth, but but I'll let it go. Um, yeah, I think I've hit most everything I wanted to say about this episode.
true.
What about you?
Sure. No, yeah, I think we've had a great convo, and on my list, like I got to talk about everything that I feel is important about it. So I'm hoping that the audience is enjoying it too. But like I keep saying, this is just an amazing progression from the original series to now, and it's really just very engaging.
Absolutely. So now is the part of the show where we get to talk about comic books.
Sure.
And I want to ask you, are there any comic books that you want to shout out? Anything that's a favorite for you, or anything you want to
So
recommend?
I've really been catching up on some of my DBZ Dragon Ball Z
Yeah,
native.
R.I.P. Akira Toriyama. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So I'm really like looking at the manga series and just trying to. It's hard because I keep waiting for season 2 of Super to come out, and so I've seen like some of the voiceover clips on YouTube, but I'm a huge DBZ fan. I did buy a compilation book of the original storyline for the Black Panther.
Hmm.
And I'm reading I'm going to start next week. This is the first. I bought the book, but I haven't started reading it yet. But the one I'm going to start with first is, I think, his second iteration with Killmonger, but they wind up fighting the KKK. So
Mm.
I'm very interested to see it. I didn't realize that in the '70s they were going that hard.
Yeah. Like
Yeah, so
props to
I'm
Marvel. Like
really,
they did
yeah,
do that.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So I'm really looking forward to reading it. I got some time off coming up, so I'm definitely going to check it out.
Awesome. Yeah. I'd love to like maybe hear some more of your thoughts on that after you go back and read that. Because like I've also been reading a lot of Black Panther lately. More of the newer stuff, like
Hmm.
the third issue of Ultimate Black Panther just came out,
Hmm.
and that's like
Hmm.
the latest redoing of his origin. And it's
Hmm.
pretty interesting so far.
Hmm.
Good art, good storyline, so
Hmm.
I recommend that. Also, there was a 2023 series, like the main Black Panther title. I'm
Hmm.
going back and catching up on that. It's by Eve Ewing and Chris
Hmm.
Allen,
Hmm.
and it's it's also pretty interesting. Um, Prior to that, there was a series by John Ridley, which I do not like, but I also don't want to, go on a tangent and rant about it. So,
Sure.
but
Hey,
but
this is your show. The floor is yours.
I know, but
Educate us.
we will be here all day about why that run was bad. Long story short, I'll just say, like a, a lot of fans agree that John Ridley tore down the character of T'Challa
Uh-huh.
and never did anything to build him back up. Like he was
Yeah.
just like, exiled from Wakanda. We don't
Hmm.
respect you as a king, as a husband. Like Storm was
Hmm.
cussing him out. Like
Hmm.
everybody was mad at T'Challa.
Hmm.
And then he got kicked out. And like
Hmm.
it's just and even Captain America was like beating the pulp out of him like till he was bloody. So like
Yeah.
Black Panther can fight back. Like he's
Yeah.
not about to let Captain America knock him out. But anyway, I digress. We've been trying to build back up T'Challa lately, I think.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
I think the newer comics have been doing better so far.
Yeah.
Um
So it's the jungle action series.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I can't wait to jump into that. So that's going to be my next read.
Yeah, those are some classic Black Panther stories. Some good
Yeah,
stuff there.
yeah.
All right. On the topic of X-Men comic books, I well, before we move on to Black Panther, I do want to say that Storm is a big part of the Ultimate Black Panther comics that are coming out right now. So
Mhm.
that's interesting. We don't quite know what she's up to because she's very separate from the X-Men in this
Mhm.
version.
Mhm.
She is working with Killmonger, so it's very
Mhm.
interesting.
Mhm.
Um, but on the topic of X-Men comic books, I do want to call out this book. I'll share it on the screen. Uncanny X-Men 275. All right, so this was a big issue from the 90s where we saw Professor X in his Emperor costume right there in the middle.
Uh-huh.
So in that storyline, it was a little different. I think that version of Professor X might have been a scroll. I don't know. I have to go back and read more, but yeah, that's a cool thing about this show that they're digging deep and pulling storylines from the comic books just like they used to. Um,
Is that that's the what's his name? Is that written by Chris Claremont?
yeah, I believe this is Chris
Okay.
Claremont and Jim Lee.
Got it.
Bef
Got it.
I
Got it.
think this is before. I don't know if this is before or concurrent to when they did their big X-Men title, but this is Uncanny X-Men 275. And yeah, you got Professor X, Jubilee, Forge, Storm, Rogue, Gambit, even Banshee, Wolverine. Um, but there's also Psylocke here. I wonder if we'll see more of Psylocke in the show. We got a little cameo.
Got it.
Um,
And so I vaguely know a little bit about this. I think they're the Star Jammers, right? And they're trying to get the return the kingdom back to Leandra. Is that what's going on?
Yeah, I think that was the general part of the storyline. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Like the
Uh-huh.
Starjammers are there, Lilandra's there, Professor X or a clone or a scroll of him is there. I don't know what's going on.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
It's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Um,
No, but that's cool. If you do an episode, you know what? I'll commit to going back and reading it too. And then if there's another episode that you want to do where we talk just about that storyline, I'm all up for it.
awesome. Yeah, like I will say, um part of the plan for these X-Men reviews, I've been having different guests on every episode so far,
Mm-hmm.
but I'd
Mm-hmm.
love for everyone to try and come back on the last three episodes. We're having a big three-part finale.
That's
Um,
awesome.
so like if schedules allow, I'd like to do a group podcast where we can all, just talk about those episodes and also continue this discussion about the comics and everything.
Sure.
So you're
Sure.
definitely welcome back anytime. Um, yeah, I don't know if I have any other comics I want to talk about today. I mean, there are new X-Men comic books that I've been reading, but I don't want to get into them right now because we've had a nice long conversation and I don't want to
Sure.
keep you
Sure.
away from your family too long. But
No, but Freddie, I mean, you've always been true to the true to the world comic book world, and I really appreciate the podcast and giving me an opportunity to come and become re-engaged. I think not only is it just Marvel doing their thing, but enthusiasts like you as well to allow someone who's kind of followed the comic books younger, but haven't really kept up with everything. I mean, this is a platform for me to talk, get a list from you, a good read to look at, and share some common ideas. So I this is great, and I'm just so happy to be a guest on your show.
no, thank you so much, Vinny. Like I really appreciate you being on the show today with me. Like this has been a great conversation. I'm sure we'll have more to say about this and the comics in the future. And like I was thinking back, like Um, this week they released Spider-Man #1 in
Hmm.
theaters. And I was trying to think back, did we see Spider-Man 1 in theaters together or was it 2? Like I
It
feel
was
like
two, two,
yeah.
two.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
remember going
yeah,
back like yeah,
yeah,
we saw that movie. Man, we've seen a lot of these comic book movies
yeah,
together.
yeah.
We might have to go see Deadpool Wolverine together.
Most definitely. And Layla's like, can I be on the podcast? I'm like, this is your uncle's show, so you might want to ask him if he does a kitty or actually we could bring her on to talk about Spidey and his amazing friends because she does
Okay.
watch it. Yeah,
All
yeah,
right, yeah, that would be
yeah,
great. Like I'm
yeah,
always happy to see what the kids are watching, see what my niece
yeah,
is watching.
yeah.
Um, and yeah, we can definitely set that up one day where she can tell us her thoughts.
Yep, yep.
But yeah, thanks again. I also want to thank everyone who's listened to this podcast. If you like what you've heard, please give this video a like, subscribe, follow, all that. I'd love to hear your thoughts too. Comment, post. You can follow me or find me on at DMVCBN on most platforms. And Vinny, is there anywhere on social media you want to shout out, or are you good?
Oh, if you guys want to, talk to me, my IG handle is at VBOJO2 or Juice Lee is my name. But I'm very happy to talk about the comic books and exchange ideas. So guys, come check me out.
Awesome. All right. Well, I think that concludes our episode today. Until next time, everybody, Excelsior.
Have
Bye.
a good one. Bye.
See ya.